Paul, any opening comments?
I am concerned that we're going to try to get through 19 bills in 1 hour, so that'll be a bill about every 3 minutes. I'm also concerned, I guess, that of the 19 bills that we're going to try to do in an hour, that there are no CBO scores on 18 out of the 19. Of the bill that has a CBO score, there's no indication of any desire to pay for it by finding the money or having a revenue source for it. You know, our government spends about $1 trillion, we don't have every year. I think it was Gideon Tucker in 1866 who said, no one's life, liberty, or property is safe when the legislature's in session. And I think there is some truth that more legislation is not always better for the country, particularly legislation that is not well thought out or had a great deal of time to discuss, hasn't had a CBO score. And I think there's a great deal that we should be thinking about as far as expanding powers for the cybersecurity infrastructure, the CISA group, given that their lackadaisical or outright hostility for the First Amendment. We found through the Twitter files that not only the FBI, but Homeland Security has been meeting in secret with Twitter as well as Facebook as well as other social media giants to discuss removing constitutionally protected speech. I think that we shouldn't consider any expansion of CISA's power, whether it's well-intended or not, until they are sufficiently regulated, sufficiently bound by the chains of the First Amendment. And I think this is a big deal. And we will continue to try to attach amendments, and we will have an amendment today that we will try to attach that basically prevents members of the Department of Homeland Security from meeting with anybody in the media to discuss limitations on constitutionally protected speech. It does have exemptions, obviously, for illegal activity. There won't be any limitations on that. And but discussing what someone's opinion is on whether or not your 2-year-old that's already had COVID should be vaccinated is an opinion, should be protected. And I think we are making a big mistake by passing dozens and dozens of bills. There's another 15 bills that they're trying to stick on the NDAA on this without really having any, I think, full-throated discussion on the problems with our First Amendment liberties being subjected to, I think, really assault by the Department of Homeland Security. I think we should have people from Homeland Security come in on these bills, discuss, how they will change things. A lot of times, we've thrown money at things in the past and we don't end up getting the results we want, and we aren't really having any interviews with the people who run these programs. I don't think we're fully assessing what's wrong with the current programs. We got an amendment at 9:15 this morning. So, I mean, the thing is it's hurry, 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 but we're trying to process 19 bills and amendments that are still coming in this morning that are being adjusted. So I think there's a little bit more rush here than is actually necessary. I think the overall desire of the committee just to pass legislation, just tons of it. This is how we end up getting legislation that is untoward or unpredicted results, unintended results. So I'm not really a fan of this process, and we'll have a bunch of amendments today that are sincere amendments, but the amendments basically will be to try to attach limitations, dollar amounts. Historically, authorization bills would say you can spend up to a certain amount. Historically, that's the way it was, and they were supposed to be guideposts for the appropriations process. Most of these bills don't have any amounts. I guess the intention is spend as much as you think is necessary for this project, but that doesn't mean we've fully thought through how much each thing is going to cost. We don't have a CBO score, and we haven't really put down on paper what we think it's going to cost. So people are basically blindly voting for something that might be a good idea without knowing how much it's going to cost. The thing is, there's a lot of good things in life. We could give everybody $20,000 a year in universal basic income, but it has to come from somewhere. There always has to be a debate, where does the money come from? And frankly, I think every time we expand one of these programs, we didn't even have these programs 20 years ago. And there's some argument whether we're safer or better off than we were 20 years ago with this Department of Homeland Security. Many people said that it would take off and become an enormous bureaucracy. I think they're right. I think that's what we have, is an enormous bureaucracy. So I think we should have a more full-throated discussion on what this costs, how big a problem our debt in our country is, and whether or not we just keep adding stuff willy-nilly without ever considering the cost of things or adding pay-fors or having any way of sort of sign to say we are concerned with how much debt we have.